Hi, we are on day 4. We're reading Preparing for Passover, a 14-day devotional for the days from Biblical New Year to Passover by Tina Chen. Day 4, What is Holding You Captive? Read Exodus 4, verses 10 through 20. I'm reading from the Web US translation of the Bible. Moses said to Yah, O Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before now nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. Yah said to him, Who made man's mouth, or who makes one mute, or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Isn't it I, Yah? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall speak. Moses said, O Lord, please send someone else. Yah's anger burned against Moses, and he said, What about Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Also, behold, he is coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth. I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and will teach you what you should do. He will be your spokesman to the people. It will happen that he will be to you a mouth, and you will be to him as God. You shall take this rod in your hand with which you shall do the signs. Moses went and returned to Jethro his father-in-law and said to him, Please let me go and return to my brothers who are in Egypt and see whether they are still alive. Jethro said to Moses, Go in peace. Yah said to Moses in Midian, Go, return into Egypt, for all the men who sought your life are dead. Moses took his wife and his sons and set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Egypt. Moses took God's rod in his hand. Day 4. What is holding you captive? When Yah calls you to a new phase in your journey with him, you may find that even though you desire to obey him, there are some things holding you back. After demonstrating to Moses that he intended to use everything about Moses' past to bring glory to himself and free his people, Yah begins to address the things holding Moses captive. The past. The first thing holding Moses back from moving forward with Yah was his past. He had already mentioned back in verse 1 of Exodus 4 that he didn't think the people would believe him or listen to him. This likely harkened back to his misguided attempt to stand up for a fellow Hebrew, only to have other Hebrews turn on him in Exodus 2 verses 11 through 15. It had probably been festering for his 40 years in Midian that those Hebrews didn't believe that he was on their side. Yah dealt with this by pointing Moses forward and giving him some signs to show the people it was really Yah talking and not just Moses. We receive similar encouragement from Paul in Philippians chapter 3 verses 12 and 13 when he reminds us who it is who has taken hold of us and encourages us to forget what is behind and strain forward toward what lies ahead. Insecurities. Next, Moses brings up another thing holding him captive, his own insecurities. Moses perceived himself as a poor and slow speaker. While we have no idea where this insecurity came from, it doesn't really matter, because Yah reminds Moses where his mouth came from. Yah himself gave Moses a mouth, and he would be with that mouth and teach it what to say. What a promise! And yet it wasn't enough for Moses. Are any insecurities holding you captive? Take them straight to your Creator and let Him remind you who made you, who will be with you, and who will guide you to fulfill your calling. Don't be like Moses here and anger Yah by rejecting his encouragement and assurance. Other people. The next thing Moses had to deal with to move forward in his journey with Yah was people who were, in some sense, holding him captive. In verse 18 of Exodus 4, we see he felt the need to ask permission of his father-in-law in order to be able to obey Yah. Whether his father-in-law actually held this power over Moses, or he just thought he had to ask permission, the effect was still the same. Thankfully, Moses' father-in-law released him, but even if he had not, Moses would have had to obey Yah. Acts 5:29 tells us that we also must obey God rather than men. In Exodus 4:19, we see Yah lay to rest another fear of Moses about a different group of people who were holding him captive. He had left Egypt because men there wanted him dead. Because of them, he was forced to stay away. But Yah freed Moses from this captivity by telling him that the men who wanted to kill him were dead. Moses was not the only person Yah was calling to embark on a journey with him in the book of Exodus. He was calling the entire nation of Israel into a new phase of relationship with him. But they, like Moses, were held captive by other people. For them, it was a very literal captivity. They were enslaved to the Egyptians. How about you? Are there any people in your life who you feel are holding you captive from moving forward in freedom on your journey with Yah? This could be family members or friends who think they know the best path for your life, or it could be enemies who seek to harm you or to keep you from following Yah. Either way, Yah wants to free you to follow him. Talk to him about your situation. Ask him to release you. He may cause them to release you peacefully, as he did with Moses' father-in-law. He may remove the threat on his own, like he did with those seeking Moses' life. Or he may have an intricate, awe-inspiring, miraculous plan to release you that will end up being a story people tell about his greatness for generations to come, like he did with the Israelites who were enslaved to the Egyptians. However he chooses to do it, you can be sure that you will be free. But be careful. Galatians 5:1 tells us we must stand firm in the freedom he gives us and not allow ourselves to be tied up again to another yoke of slavery. Yah knew that freeing the Israelites and us from our pasts, our insecurities, and the holds other people have on us was the easy part. What really holds us captive from moving forward with him is and has always been the idolatry of our hearts. From Adam and Eve in the garden until now, we have continually chosen ways other than him to meet our needs and desires. And so, he began a series of attacks on the most powerful gods of Moses's and the Israelites' world. Both Exodus 12:12 and Numbers 33:4 indicate that with the plagues, Yah executed his judgment on all the gods of Egypt. Over the next 10 days, as we prepare our hearts for Passover, we will examine each of the 10 plagues Yah released on Egypt. He knew his people's hearts had been influenced by the idolatrous ways of Egypt, and systematically showed them, the watching world and us, that only he could truly meet the deepest desires and needs of their and our hearts. I believe we will find we seek many of the same things they did, and we may find that we are seeking some of those things from the wrong places. As we embark on this journey together, let's commit to fully repenting of any idolatry he reveals to us, so that when we hear his voice say, "Let my people go," we are ready to walk forward with him in freedom.